Why do some people feel impossible to forget, even when they barely chase you, barely explain themselves, and barely ask for more? Why does calm feel stronger than passion? Why does silence sometimes feel safer than love? If you've ever felt pulled towards someone who didn't overwhelm you, didn't rush you, and didn't demand your emotions, this is not an accident. This is psychology. And once you understand it, you will never see connection the same way again. Stay with this until the end, because what you'll learn here will help you spot emotional patterns before they control you. It will help you understand why certain people feel addictive and how that addiction actually begins. Avoidant people are not cold. They are not broken. They are not incapable of love. They are highly sensitive to emotional threat. Their mind learned early that closeness can equal danger, that dependence can equal loss of control, that strong emotion can lead to pain. So their nervous system adapted. It learned to scan for pressure, for intensity, for emotional noise. Anything loud feels unsafe. Anything urgent feels risky. Anything emotionally demanding feels like a trap closing in. And because of this, avoidants don't run from connection. They run from overstimulation. They want closeness, but only the kind that doesn't overwhelm their system. That's where the invisible pull begins. When most people communicate, they communicate with need. They push for reassurance. They push for clarity. They push for emotional responses. To an avoidant nervous system, this feels like intrusion, not intimacy. Intrusion. So the avoidant learns to retreat, to self-soothe alone, to regulate emotions privately, to rely on distance as safety. Now here's the shift. When an avoidant meets someone who communicates calmly, something changes. No pressure, no emotional flooding, no urgency, just presence. The nervous system notices first. Before logic, before attraction, before desire, it feels quieter, and quiet feels safe. This person doesn't chase. They don't demand explanations. They don't escalate emotions. They don't push for immediate closeness. They speak clearly. They pause comfortably. They allow space without punishment. For the avoidant brain, this is rare, very rare. And rarity increases value. The avoidant doesn't think, I like this person. They feel, I can breathe around this person. That relief is powerful, because relief is not neutral. Relief feels like connection. Relief feels like trust. Relief feels like something precious. When emotional pressure disappears, defenses drop. And when defenses drop, bonding begins. This is where most people get confused. They think attraction comes from excitement, from intensity, from sparks. But for an avoidant, attraction comes from regulation, from emotional calm, from predictability, from not feeling invaded. The person who communicates gently doesn't feel boring. They feel grounding, and grounding feels like safety. The avoidant system starts associating this person with peace, with stability, with emotional oxygen. And the brain learns fast. It learns, around this person, I am okay. That belief sinks deep, deeper than words, deeper than logic. This is not about love yet. This is about survival patterns. The human brain is wired to move toward whatever reduces internal stress. So when someone lowers anxiety without effort, the brain marks them as important, valuable, necessary. This is how attachment begins without intention. The avoidant didn't plan to care. They didn't decide to bond. Their nervous system did it for them. Calm communication sends a silent message. You are not in danger here. And for someone who lives in emotional defense mode, that message is intoxicating. This is why the pull feels invisible. There's no dramatic moment, no obvious spark, no emotional explosion. Just a subtle shift, a sense of ease, a sense of comfort, a sense of relief. And relief turns into preference. Preference turns into attachment, without the avoidant even noticing it happening. This is the first stage, the stage where safety feels like attraction, where calm feels like chemistry, where silence feels like understanding. And this is why avoidants don't get addicted to people. They get addicted to how their nervous system feels around certain communicators. In the next part, this goes deeper. Because not all calm communication works. Only a very specific style creates this effect. And once you understand that style, you'll see why some connections feel effortless, and why others never stand a chance. Stay with it. That invisible pull does not grow by chance. It grows because of how certain people speak, respond, and emotionally position themselves. Not what they say, but how their presence is felt. There is a specific way of communicating that slips past emotional defenses without force. It does not demand access. It does not chase closeness. It does not try to be impressive. Instead, it signals stability. These communicators move at a steady pace. They don't rush emotions forward. They don't speed conversations up to reduce their own discomfort. They are not trying to secure reassurance quickly. Their words arrive without tension. They express interest without pressure. They show care without expectation. They share thoughts without attaching consequences. This creates a powerful psychological effect. For someone wired to protect their inner space, this style feels different from everything they have known. There is no emotional ambush, no sudden intensity spike, no demand to perform closeness. The mind stays open. These people do something most never notice. They leave room to think, room to respond, room to choose. They don't punish pauses. They don't fill silence with anxiety. They don't interpret distance as rejection. This communicates emotional confidence. And emotional confidence is magnetic, because confidence says, I am stable on my own. That message changes the entire dynamic. When someone does not lean emotionally, they are perceived as grounded. When they don't chase, they are seen as secure. When they don't rush connection, they appear strong. This flips the usual power structure. Instead of being pursued, the avoidant mind becomes curious. Instead of retreating, it stays engaged. Instead of preparing escape, it observes. Curiosity replaces resistance. These communicators are also consistent, not dramatic, not unpredictable. Their tone does not swing wildly. Their behavior matches their words. Their emotional signals are clean. Consistency builds trust quietly. Trust doesn't need intensity. It needs reliability. Each interaction reinforces the same message. You know where you stand. There is no emotional guessing game, no decoding hidden meanings, no pressure to manage another person's feelings. That alone is rare. Most people unknowingly transfer emotional weight. They lean, push, hint, or test. This style does none of that. It removes emotional labor. And when emotional labor disappears, connection feels light. This is where attachment deepens without awareness, because the avoidant brain is not reacting to attraction. It is responding to emotional efficiency. Less energy spent, less vigilance required, less internal conflict. The brain values efficiency. It moves toward environments that cost less internally. That's why this communication style becomes preferred. Over time, preference becomes importance. Another key factor appears here. These communicators respect boundaries without making them a big deal. They don't announce respect. They demonstrate it. They don't take distance personally. They don't interpret autonomy as rejection. They don't demand emotional explanations. This preserves dignity. And dignity is deeply attractive to someone who fears losing control. The avoidant mind begins to feel seen without being exposed. That balance is powerful. Seen, but not invaded. Connected, but not trapped. This creates a sense of emotional freedom inside the connection. And freedom inside closeness feels extraordinary because most relationships feel like trade-offs. Closeness for independence, love for space. This one doesn't. It allows both. Another subtle behavior strengthens the pull. These people speak directly. No manipulation, no emotional puzzles, no indirect pressure. Clarity reduces threat. When communication is clear, the mind relaxes. When intentions are stated, the body softens. There is no need to prepare defenses. The avoidant system begins associating this person with ease of processing. Conversations feel clean. Interactions feel manageable. Emotions feel contained. Contained does not mean suppressed. It means organized. This is the hidden hook. The brain learns that connection does not equal chaos here. So it stops bracing. And when bracing stops, attachment grows. Slowly, quietly, unnoticed. The avoidant does not feel overwhelmed. They feel functional. They can think clearly around this person. They can stay present longer. They can return without dread. That creates repetition. Repetition strengthens emotional pathways. Soon, this communicator becomes the emotional baseline. Others feel loud. Others feel heavy. Others feel demanding. This one feels manageable, and manageability becomes desire. Not explosive desire, stable desire. The kind that lingers, the kind that deepens, the kind that doesn't announce itself. This is why the bond feels confusing later, because it didn't start with intensity. It started with ease. In the next part, this ease turns into something stronger, because once the brain links emotional balance to a specific person, separation begins to feel uncomfortable, and that discomfort changes everything. Stay focused. At first, nothing feels extreme. There is no obsession. The moment awareness appears, the pattern weakens. Not instantly, but steadily, because awareness interrupts automation. Until now, the process lived below consciousness. The body reacted before the mind could question. Relief was mistaken for attachment. Discomfort was mistaken for loss. Now, the frame changes. This is the critical shift. Instead of asking, "Why do I want this person?" the question becomes, "What state am I trying to reach?" That single question restores control. When the nervous system understands its own behavior, it stops panicking. When meaning replaces confusion, urgency dissolves. The avoidant no longer feels possessed by emotion. They feel informed. Information creates choice, and choice is power. The truth is simple, but confronting it requires courage. Calm did not come from another human. It was activated within. The other person was a trigger, not a source. This matters deeply, because triggers can be replaced. Sources cannot. Once this distinction becomes clear, dependency begins to loosen, not by force, by clarity. The mind stops chasing external balance. It starts rebuilding internal stability. This is where real strength forms. The avoidant learns that emotional order can exist without withdrawal, that peace does not require distance from others, that safety is not fragile. It can be trained. This is not about cutting people off. It is about removing unconscious reliance. Connection stops being a coping mechanism. It becomes a choice. And choice changes everything. Now comes the rebuilding phase. Instead of waiting for calm to appear through someone else, the avoidant starts creating it. Through structure, through rhythm, through grounding practices. When inner regulation strengthens, the pull weakens naturally. No struggle required. The mind stops scanning for relief. The body stops leaning outward. Emotional independence returns. This does not kill connection. It purifies it. Because relationships built on need feel heavy. Relationships built on stability feel clean. The avoidant begins noticing something powerful. The same communication style that once felt addictive now feels neutral, not boring, not meaningless, just balanced. This is growth. When emotional hunger disappears, clarity appears. The avoidant can finally see the other person clearly, not as a stabilizer, not as an anchor, but as a human being, with strengths, with limits, with flaws. This restores realism. Realism dissolves illusion. Now attraction, if it exists, is real, not driven by regulation needs, not fueled by internal imbalance, just honest interest. And if attraction does not remain, that is clarity too. Both outcomes are healthy. This is the wake-up call. The goal was never to avoid closeness. It was to avoid losing control. True control does not come from distance. It comes from self-mastery. When the avoidant learns to self-regulate, connection stops feeling dangerous. Closeness no longer threatens identity. Emotion no longer signals risk. The nervous system rewires, slowly, gently. And with that rewiring comes freedom. Freedom from unconscious attachment. Freedom from confusing calm with chemistry. Freedom from mistaking relief for love. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming grounded. Grounded people connect deeply without fear. They engage without losing themselves. They stay without suffocating. That is the real destination. Not avoidance, not dependence. Integration. When emotional safety is built internally, no one holds power over peace. And when no one holds that power, relationships become lighter, healthier, cleaner. The avoidant no longer runs, no longer clings, no longer wonders why certain people feel impossible to let go. They understand. And understanding changes behavior. This is how the cycle ends. Not with resistance, not with denial, but with insight. And insight always leads to strength. No emotional rush, no dramatic attachment, just a quiet preference. But the human mind does not stay neutral for long. What began as comfort starts turning into reliance. This happens because the brain is a learning machine. It records patterns. It remembers relief. It tracks what reduces inner strain. Each calm interaction becomes data. The body notices that tension drops faster in one presence than anywhere else. Thoughts slow down. Breathing becomes deeper. Internal noise fades. The mind makes a silent connection. This state is important. Not the person, the state. This is where confusion begins, because the attachment is not emotional in the usual sense. It is neurological. The nervous system starts using that connection as a regulation tool. Stress appears. The mind drifts toward that person, not consciously, automatically. It's not longing, it's regulation seeking. The brain is trying to return to balance. Over time, this balance becomes associated with one source. That's how dependence forms without awareness. When the interaction is present, things feel smooth. When it is absent, something feels off. Not pain, not sadness, disruption. The system struggles to settle. This discomfort is subtle at first. A slight restlessness, a mild irritation, a vague sense of unease. Nothing dramatic. But the brain notices contrast. Before, calm was easy. Now it takes effort, and effort signals loss. This is where craving starts, not craving closeness, craving stability. The mind begins checking. Are they there? Will they respond? When will I feel settled again? These thoughts don't feel emotional. They feel practical. That's what makes them powerful. The avoidant still believes they are independent, still believes they are in control, but the body is already adapting. Each moment of relief strengthens the pathway. Each moment of absence sharpens awareness. This creates a loop. Presence equals regulation. Distance equals imbalance. The loop does not need drama to grow. It feeds on contrast. Another factor deepens this pattern. The relief is not constant. It appears, then fades, returns, then pauses, not because of manipulation, but because space exists naturally. This irregular rhythm trains the brain even faster. When relief is unpredictable, the mind works harder to regain it. Harder focus increases attachment. The system starts anticipating, waiting, monitoring. This anticipation feels like connection, but it is actually conditioning. The avoidant may label it interest, or curiosity, or concern. But underneath, it is dependency on a state of inner order. This is why the pull becomes strong without intensity. No emotional explosion is required, just repetition. The brain does not ask whether this is healthy. It asks whether this is familiar, and familiarity feels safe. Now comes the paradox. The avoidant still values distance, still values autonomy, still believes separation equals control. Yet separation now creates discomfort. This creates inner conflict. The mind wants space, the body wants relief. This tension increases focus on the source of relief, not out of desire, out of regulation need. That's why it starts to feel addictive. Addiction is not about pleasure. It is about escape from discomfort. The avoidant is not chasing love. They are avoiding internal chaos. The calmer communicator becomes associated with emotional order. Without realizing it, the avoidant starts organizing their inner world around that connection. When life becomes stressful, the mind drifts there. When uncertainty rises, attention shifts there. When pressure builds, the nervous system remembers. This is how a person becomes emotionally significant without romance or obsession. Significance is assigned by function, and this person serves a function. They stabilize. Now the cost of losing access rises, not emotionally, physiologically. The system resists disruption. The avoidant might feel irritated by their own reactions. Why does this matter? Why am I thinking about this? I don't need this. But the reactions continue, because the body already learned. This is the trap. The avoidant did not choose dependence, they trained it. Slowly, quietly, unintentionally. This is why sudden distance hurts more than expected, not because of rejection, but because the regulation source disappears. The system scrambles, it tries to self-balance again, and until it adapts, it feels unstable. That instability gets misinterpreted as attachment, as missing someone, as emotional loss, but it is actually loss of internal equilibrium. Understanding this matters, because it changes the story. The avoidant is not weak, not needy, not broken. They are responding to conditioning. Once the brain assigns safety to a single external source, separation triggers stress. This is biology, not failure. And here is the turning point. Awareness begins dissolving the illusion. When someone recognizes that they are attached to a state, not a person, power returns. Because states can be rebuilt internally. Relief does not belong to one connection. Stability is not owned by another human. But until this is seen clearly, the pattern continues. The next part matters most, because recognition alone is not enough. The final shift comes when the pattern is faced without fear, and that's where real strength begins. Stay with it.